Hey, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Downfield Read Fantasy Football Forum or Funcast or whatever you want to call it here. But it's Shawn and I back again to give you who to start, who to sit, who might some sleepers be. We've got a fun week coming up. It's the first week of the buys, so you might have some players that are on buys, especially if you've got Detroit or some of these other teams that have high-performing people. You might need to know who to go with. That's what we're here for. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to use the comments. Let us know. We'll try to answer as many comments as we possibly can. I think we're pretty good at actually getting all of them the last couple of weeks. Generally get about 24 people that come in. And we're going to try this on a Saturday, though. So we've got some little bit different things going on this week. If you haven't noticed, I'm not in my regular office here. I'm on an anniversary trip with my wife, and I want to thank her individually just because she's allowing me to do this yet on her anniversary so she can look for some shells right now. But as always, we've got Shawn Pettinati, and Shawn has some really great news. So I'm going to pass it over to him. Some really good stuff has happened to him. So Shawn, take it away, man.
First, thank you, Jeff. First, happy anniversary to you and your wife.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me on, as always. Enjoy coming on here with you. It's really super. Really enjoy it. And I think we bounced some great ideas off each other and seem to kind of mesh real nicely. So I'm real thankful for that. But I wanted to just give a quick plug to my company, Total Apex Sports. I found out from my editor yesterday that I was picked up by YardBarker and became a nationally syndicated sports writer. So I was obviously flabbergasted, floored, surprised, all the above. But now it's nice because they've been picking up now 3 of my DFS articles, including the main DFS slate that I write for Total Apex Sports. So please check into that, now and in the future. And it allows me to be across multiple platforms, so kind of a snowball effect for my writing content.
Absolutely. And congratulations. I know we talked a little bit before we started. That's really awesome. I know when I started Downfield Reading, it's just kind of getting going here about a year ago. It was YardBarker. I looked at one of them as far as how I kind of wanted to have my website set up and everything. Mm-hmm. So I know for me, YardBarker, very familiar with them, like them, like their stuff. So really cool that you're actually with them now too. So yeah, awesome. Again, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And as for me, you can follow me on Facebook. Obviously here on YouTube, I've got a Spotify channel. On X, I'm on Instagram, do most of my stuff on X though. If you have any questions after this, or maybe you missed the live show, you want to ask any questions, hit me up on X. I'm going to get back to you as quickly as I can. And Shawn, go ahead and plug away where you're at right now.
Yeah, I'm again out. You can find me on X at the coach's desk, and then I work now, and you'll find my links there at Total Apex Sports. Again, I write on 2 beats there: the fantasy side, do the main, as I said, main DFS slate, individual DFS games, and then I'm on the sports betting side. I do a weekly 3-team NFL and NCAA parlay, and then I sprinkle in here and there individual games. This week I wrote up the final game on the college football slate tonight, 11 o'clock. I did an individual article on the Arizona-Texas Tech game, so you can check that out. And also I want to put a plug in here for my man Jeff, because he does some great stuff. A couple weeks ago, if you tuned in, he absolutely nailed the Derrick Henry pick in the Ravens game. So if you tailed that, you probably got a win in your season long. If you hit it, tailed it on DFS, you probably were on the pay line. So he does super job, and he does stuff. He'll do podcasts himself. He's gracious enough to invite me on weekly. So, follow him, tag him, and let's blow him up.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. And I can actually, I'm on LinkedIn as well. One last thing that I'll say about plugging myself here real quick: on Instagram and on LinkedIn, I need 150 followers in order to stream live there. Right now, we're just streaming live to my personal Facebook page, and then obviously to YouTube Downfield Read. So the more places that I get some more likes and followers, the more places we can stream, and you guys can catch this everywhere. So, but let's get started. I tell you what, we got one question in already.
Yep.
Start Stafford, Deontay, or Wicks as my other super flex, and I'm guessing Deontay Johnson there, or Wicks as my other super flex with Richardson out.
For me, Jeff, Dobbs is now doubtful /out. So obviously we know Watson's not playing. We might not get 13 targets and 2 touchdowns from Wicks, but I would rank him ahead. I'd rank him number 1 on that. I think the other one was Deontay Johnson. I'd put him second. And what was the third choice again?
Stafford.
Stafford. Yeah, that would be my. I mean, obviously, if you need, I'm assuming this gentleman has another quarterback already, but it would be Wicks for me.
Yeah.
Just based off the data that's come in, and you and I have been really good, like updating injury reports in the live. So, something's going on with Dobbs. From what I understand, he's not happy with his role. So
Isn't
he's
that
missed
funny?
the
So
last
he
2
decides
days.
not to go. He's just like, screw this. I'm not going to practice. Which bad idea.
Here we go. Yep. Here we go. Here we go, Jeff. This is live, and people might know us. He is out now officially 6 minutes ago. He is out for this week and suspended.
Ouch.
Dobbs is suspended. Expected to rejoin the team next week after missing 2 practices.
Well, that'll do it for you then. Obviously, I think that creates a little bit more value. I think the Rams are going up against the Packers this week, so it creates a little bit of value for Stafford, but not enough. I agree with you, Shawn. And what I would actually look at too, you'll find out in a little bit here as we go over quarterbacks. With Richardson, I've got him listed as doubtful. I thought he was going to be a game time decision, but as of 38 minutes ago, Richardson oblique was downgraded to doubtful for Sunday's game. How about this? If Flacco's available, I'd go after him.
Yeah.
He's going up against Jacksonville. Jacksonville has the worst passing defense in the NFL. So
and
if he can still get Flacco, that might be another option in there as well.
And he gets the ball to those wideouts, so all of a sudden, our man Josh Downs becomes viable. He brought Pittman. He can bring Pittman back to life. So, great
absolutely.
call.
I mean, you saw what Flacco did with that offense without even practicing with the first team all week long. He has been practicing with the first team. That's what was reported. So I can't imagine with those extra reps in there going up against Jacksonville. Jacksonville has a potent offense. Don't sleep on them. Indy's going to have to put up some points, and without Jonathan Taylor being in there, they might have to rely on the arm of Flacco to get in there too. So just as maybe a fourth option.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he's not available. Ooh, somebody was smart and picked him up. All right.
Yes.
Well, I tell you what, then let's go ahead and let's get into the quarterback rankings here since we're talking about QBs and QB options. Do you want to hit this one first, Shawn, or do you want?
Yeah, I'll go. And I usually go off of my recommendations off my article. So for starts, unfortunately he's going to be chalky, but Jaden Daniels for me is one, and then a not so obvious one. Maybe could go unowned, or I shouldn't say unowned, lesser owned in DFS is Justin Fields. Those are my 2 for this week. Fields, I wouldn't say he's got a stranglehold on it, but he gives you the floor because of the rushing touchdowns, and he's not necessarily on film looks great as an NFL quarterback, but the fantasy numbers are there. And I believe, Jeff, Daniels is QB2 and Fields is 7 right now through 4 weeks. So those are my 2. Jeff is right on the money. I'll back him up with his sleeper for Flacco. I like him a lot. Those are
if you
my
get
3.
him, and last time I looked, he was only owned at about 5%. I actually snagged him for this week as well because I got Jared Goff, and I did not have a viable backup. My backup was Bo Nix, and I'm not starting him this week. They're going up against Las Vegas. I still don't like that idea. But, I picked up Joe Flacco. I think I'm going to end up putting him in for this week as well. So my starters for quarterback, I had one of yours as well. Jaden Daniels, I think is just kind of a no-brainer right there. You're going to play him. He's leading fantasy football points for quarterbacks. And, I guess before Thursday Night Football, I think you might have a different leader up there right now with Baker Mayfield.
Yes.
But going up against Cleveland, it's not the same Cleveland defense of old, so him for sure. And then I've got my other 2 quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson at Cincinnati. Cincinnati gives up the 5th most points per game. So I do like Lamar in this one. Obviously, he can run the ball. He gets rushing touchdowns. He got one last week. He can also throw the ball as well. That one, Cincinnati's got a great offense. They're going to have to pass. They're going to have to run. They're going to have to keep up with Cincinnati's offense. And then my third one as a must start is Brock Purdy. He hasn't been outstanding at all this year, but going up against Arizona, who's given up the 4th most points given up per game. They were without Debo for 2 of the 4 weeks that they had him. The running game is still amazing. And the fact that Arizona just gave up all of those points, all of those yards to Washington last week. This being a divisional game, I see Brock Purdy having a great game as well.
Yep. And then just a couple more points I had with quarterback. So this is not necessarily when I do my article there's a fade and a lock. So for my fade, I'm going to say for quarterback, it's probably not a sit, but a temper is Patrick Mahomes. I can't believe I'm even saying that, but he's QB, I believe 16, which is he's 17. It's not where you drafted him, and you and I talk about that all the time. And then everyone's going to think I'm crazy. I'm taking a risk in my article this week, and then sometimes you got to be different. For my lock, because if he can't do it this week, Jeff, and I'm about to say it, you'll know what I'm saying, is Deshaun Watson against that 32 ranked secondary. When can he do it? Now, to be fair to Watson, Cooper had an 82-yard touchdown call back last week on basically a bogus holding call. And if that stands, Watson's numbers were probably pushing in the top 12. So if it's not this week, there's no better matchup he's going to get through his first 5 starts. So.
Nope, I agree with you. And as far as a sit, I've got 3 quarterbacks for my sits. Patrick Mahomes was in mine as well. Obviously, we know the wide receiver issues that they have in Kansas City right now. If New Orleans is smart, they're attacking the run game only. They're trying to take Kareem Hunt out of this game, make Patrick Mahomes beat you. And let's be honest, Patrick Mahomes has not been great this year. He's 15th, 16th. He's kind of an above-average quarterback this season. He's not giving you the best opportunities for a lot of points. So he is one of my sits. A no-brainer, Gardner Minshew in Las Vegas. They still don't have Adams in there. Denver is ranked 3rd for the least amount of points given up in a game per game, and 3rd for fewest passing yards. So it makes Gardner Minshew a definite do not play. And then for my 3rd one, and this might be a shocker, Sam Darnold. There's just something about him. He's been playing outstanding for the first 4 weeks, but versus the Jets, and the Jets have given up the 2nd least amount of yards and the 5th least points. Now, they played Denver last week, and that helps with that statistic a little bit because Denver does not have a great offense. But at the same time, they're playing overseas this week. So, maybe the time change there, something funky. There's something about the Sam Darnold situation I don't care for against the Jets.
Yeah, his top wideout could get sauced this week. So that's another factor.
Yep. Sleepers that I've got. I already mentioned Joe, and I had him as my super sleeper. And I wasn't sure if I was going to bring him up or not, but obviously we just found out about a half an hour ago that he is probably going to be the starter there. As a sleeper, I don't know how much of a sleeper he is. Joe Burrow. They're going to have to pass a lot. They've got a lot of weapons there. And here's the thing, being a Ravens fan, I know this. Cincinnati, doesn't matter how bad that they are during a given year, they always play Baltimore tough.
They do.
And if Baltimore puts up the same kind of points that they did last week against Buffalo, Cincinnati's going to have to retaliate. They're going to have to come out. He's going to have to come out throwing the ball, much like I see a lot of that Cincinnati-Washington game from a few weeks ago, where he's going to have to come out and maybe throw 2 or 3 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah, that's a great point. It goes back to multiple years. They always play them tough for some reason.
Yep. All right, let's take a look at a few more questions that we've got here. Would you trade Garrett Wilson for Shaheed Rashid and Jerry Jeudy if it meant getting Brees? I'd have Kyron, Brees, and Brooks, and have JJ as my wide receiver 1 with Deontay, Waddle, Wicks, and Dell on the bench. So would you trade Garrett Wilson
and get back?
Shaheed? I would honestly, here's the thing. When we're talking about, and we talked about Devontae Adams a little bit here, that he's going to be traded somewhere. And I think the top 3 teams that you've got that you're looking at the Jets, you're looking at the Steelers, and you're looking at maybe the Ravens. There's been some cryptic messages going out there. So I think those are your top 3 teams that he's going to end up going to. If he goes to the Jets, that's going to hurt your Garrett Wilson stock a little bit. Not that Garrett Wilson has been putting up fabulous numbers, because he hasn't. I'm a guy, find those gems that you can buy low, sell high. I think Garrett Wilson is a if you can buy low on him.
Yes.
So don't discredit him yet, but his stock is really going to sink if they get Devontae Adams in there as well. So would you trade Garrett Wilson for Shaheed and Jeudy if it meant getting Brees? I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I'm not giving up. I'm not, me, I talk about it a couple of times on our show, your show. I'm not a big 2-for-1 guy. And to me, I'm going to get rid of First of all, two things. I'm not getting rid of the best player there is Wilson in the stats. I think the stats, like he's due for positive regression, big time. Two, I don't like having the quarterback, wide receiver on the same team. It's a negative correlation. Quarterback, wide receiver is fine. Quarterback, tight end is fine. But quarterback, running back, or running back, wide receiver is a negative correlation. So they take away from each other.
Yeah.
So for me, no, not I wouldn't want Hall. And now if I could get Hall and I could turn around and turn him into something else, okay. But I would want a second. I want to try to make another deal in there if I had both Breece Hall and Wilson, or you could get Wilson to get something else. But I don't want them both. So for this person, that particular trade, I want to keep Wilson.
Yeah, and he explains it a little bit more here. Basically, Wilson, Stafford, Jacobs for Breece, Shaheed, and Judy redraft Superflex with Mahomes and AR as my QBs right now.
Oh, so he's good. He's set at quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to get as many of the best players I can get. So if he's got AR and Mahomes, and now actually, if you tell me Mahomes is your second quarterback, well, you're okay. Right now, because I my gut's telling me I'm keeping Wilson. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a gamble, obviously, because like what I just said there with Adams. If Adams comes on board, your Wilson stock is going to stay low.
Mm-hmm.
But if he goes somewhere else, which I don't think he's going to end up with the Jets personally.
I don't either.
I think he's going AFC North.
I did read that the Steelers were supposed to make an aggressive offer for him, which I don't know if that's 2 seconds instead of 1, but I'm not. And the other thing too, now for this gentleman, if he's 0-4, then he might feel he needs to shake it up. But if you're 4-0, you don't need to do that trade.
Yeah.
If you're 0-4, okay, I guess you are 1-3. Maybe you want to shake things up, but that'd be the only reason. But again, the best player for me there is Wilson, and I'm going to keep him. He's a buy low for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've got him in my dynasty league, and he was one of my 3 keepers that I kept year over year. So I'm not ready to give up on him either. So I would wholeheartedly agree with you on that one. We got another one, T-Money, 10-man PPR, Burrow, Jacobs, Gibbs, CD, Chase, Kincaid, DK, Wicks, Ford, Chase Brown, Downs, Myers, Worthy. Brooks on IR. He's 2-2. Just traded Connor and JMO for Gibbs.
Connor and JMO for Gibbs.
I don't know if I should start Wicks or Downs in the flex. Well, with
Wicks, probably Downs is going to share some targets. Wicks, the target pie has shrunk with no Dobbs and no Watson. So instinct is Wicks, because his pie, the pie chart. I mean, you like I said, you don't expect 13 targets every week, but now that you found out Dobbs is suspended, and we already know Watson's out, he's gonna get his targets. And Reed, having a good player opposite Reed, sometimes works in his favor, because where you roll coverage to.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I would go Wicks. There's too many other weapons in Indy to go Downs. Or Gibson, since he's starting against Miami. Gibson. I don't like that. We can get into that when we get into running backs. I would stay away from any running back in New England at this point.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Okay, he starts, but then in the second series, does Ramondre come back in and get half? Come back. You know what I mean? Because start just means they're out there for the first play.
Yeah, and they just paid Ramondre Stevenson in the offseason. So I don't know what Jared Mayo is thinking.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea, but I was never a fan of Gerard Mayo coming in anyway and being that coach. It's like, man, they did a press conference for Belichick. Oh, Belichick is retiring. And then 15 minutes later, hey, guess what? We got a new head coach.
Yeah.
I don't know why the need to put him in play. I was a little weary of him as a head coach. I don't know why. I get why. You fumbled 4 times in 4 games.
Yeah.
Okay. If you wanna discipline the guy, fine him, whatever. But let's be honest, he's the starting running back there. He's better than Antonio
Gibson's a third down back. I know he's not built. He's not built to go get 20 to 25 touches. He's a complimentary back, And like I said, he's probably going to sit for a quarter. I don't think he's. I'd be shocked if he's inactivated. He's going to dress Stevenson. I mean,
Yeah. All right. So that was we kind of covered our quarterbacks there. I
Yep.
think we got all the way through. So let's get into running backs. And don't worry, the Smitty, I'm going to get to your tight end question. And he's actually got two questions. Ramondre Gibson or Williams. Why am I drawing a blank? Yep, Javon Williams. Thank you.
Williams.
To start in week one, I think you got to go Williams.
I'm Williams too. He looks like they kind of has maybe possibly taken the bull by the horns and being that back. Because we've talked about this, Jeff. The running back one in the Sean Payton offense goes back years as being, and then the scat back. So like the Deuce McAllister, the Mark Ingram, but also then the Kamara and the Reggie Bush. Like they're both Darren Sproles. They're both viable. So it could be Javonte, and looks like it's Javonte Williams. And then I'm drawing a blank on the ancillary back, the little guy, McLaughlin. That looks like he's going to be the scat back. It looks like because Beto went down, he's certainly not playing this week.
Yeah.
And Esteme's on IR. So those are your two.
Yep, I go Williams. I think we're in agreement with that one. All right, so running backs. Here's what I've got. I'm going to go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Start. I think you got to start Derrick Henry. This is a no-brainer. So I've got some no-brainers in here, and then I've got some sleepers and some sitters in there as well. But Derrick Henry versus Cincinnati, since he gives up the fifth most points in the NFL, they've given up the seventh most rushing yards. Seeing what Derrick Henry did to Buffalo last week, I don't know how or why you'd get away from him. That's a no-brainer. Kyren Williams with the Rams playing against Green Bay, because everything is going to go through Kyren. Obviously, they still have wide receiver issues. Kyren Williams is our main back there. I think he had 2 rushing and 1 receiving touchdown last week. Jordan Mason versus Arizona. You're not going to stop playing Jordan Mason. Arizona's given up the 4th most points, and they've got the 6th most rushing yards. So Jordan Mason's a no-brainer. And then we'll get into some other ones that may not be no-brainers. I've got Travis Etienne versus the Colts. The Colts give up the most rushing yards, and Etienne is ready. I think he's due for a big bounce-back game in that Jacksonville offense. Peterson's on the hot seat at this point. No doubt about that. He's going to have to get something going against that Colts team. Josh Jacobs in Green Bay versus the Rams, because it's quite possible Green Bay gets out to a very good lead. And even when they didn't, watching Josh Jacobs against the Minnesota Vikings last week, they were down by 21, and he's still a pass catcher coming out of the backfield. So he was still racking up points. And I remember that because I was going up against him thinking, Josh Jacobs isn't going to do anything anymore. Vikings are up by 3 scores. No, he was still in the game. So they're going to keep him very much alive versus the Rams. And then obviously James Cook had a bad game against Baltimore last week. Bounce back game for him against Houston this week.
So for me,
can I take all yours?
No. Well, I'm gonna make now. I'll try to speed through this. I'll go with the first. I have Najee Harris as a start this week. Obviously, no Jaylen Warren again. I liked him. When I did interestingly, I thought I did my write-up on the individual DFS game this week for the Monday night game. Alvin Kamara, and you probably already know this, Jeff. Alvin Kamara has, let me get it here for you, 80 attempts and 17 catches in 4 games. That's crazy elite usage. Yeah. And I had him as as the lock in that game. And then, by the way, throwing 6 touchdowns. So for me in that game, I didn't realize how much he had. That's elite usage. That's not good usage. That's elite usage.
Yeah.
As a couple, so my sit was Ramondre. We talked about that. That's my sit of the week on the running backs. And then a couple, I'll just get them all together, and then we'll throw it back to you. Tyrone Tracy, Singleton's out with the groin. This guy's explosive. He'll catch the ball. No neighbors. Could get a bunch of dump offs this week. He could be someone. You mentioned Sermon. Sermon could be someone if you plug in, because we know with the bye weeks, like for someone like me in one league, I have no Barkley, I have no Dobbins, I have a bunch, so I have to use Sermon. He's in there. And then Brian Robinson did not practice Wednesday, Thursday, is going up to game time with the knee. Eckler's cleared. They have a darn good offensive line there. And Eckler becomes, for me, a must start if Robinson doesn't play because he can pass. And you know this, with that Washington defense, they're game scripted in. Like, he can catch the ball. Like, that Washington offense is always in a good game script to put up points. And I think there's going to be points in that game. So that was, for me, was an Eckler. Was like when I didn't cut. And again, I did a little write-up on that Commanders game. Keep calling them Redskins. Speaking of my age. And so that was mine. Those are, I wouldn't call them, those are my likes. And then Ramondre was just one I did not like at all. And I'm hesitant on Brian Robinson. I would call him a fade more than a sit, but with no practice. And then let's say he goes up to game time and he plays, it scares me with a knee. Is there a re-injury risk? Of course. And 2, is he on a snap count? So that's why I like the Eckler a lot, especially if Eckler's out. If Robinson's out, Eckler's in automatic.
Right. Yep. And I saw a couple other people picking up Mick, what's his face, the third down back.
Nichols. Yep.
Yep.
He had a long run last week. That's a great, that could be, if you're in a real deep league like our Turf War league, he's a guy you could start in a flex if you had to, because if Robinson's out, he's going to get maybe 8 touches, and he could make a touchdown out of it.
Absolutely. My running back sit committee here, I've got Rico Dowdle. Don't get too caught up in him just yet. It does look like that he is trending to take over that lead RB1 role in Dallas over Zeke, but they are going up against Pittsburgh. We still don't know what's entirely going on in the backfield, and Pittsburgh gives up the 3rd fewest ground yards. So stay away from Rico for now. Until further notice, I'd also say stay away from Devon Achane. Miami is a mess. We thought maybe bringing in Tyler Huntley was going to revive them a little bit. Doesn't look like that is the case. They're going up against New England, and they are 9th versus the run. So it's not, they're 1-3, but they do shut down the run nicely. There's a little bit of locker room animosity going on right now in New England.
What a mess. That's a dumpster fire there.
Yeah, that whole team, we hit it on it before. Jared Mayo, that team is up in smoke. And then my last one for do not play is Zamir White versus Denver. We kind of mentioned them before. The Broncos give up the 3rd fewest points. And if they can shut down the New York Jets with all of their weapons, forget about it. Zamir White doesn't stand a chance. My sleepers this week, and you mentioned Najee Harris before, I think he could do really well against Dallas this week. Like you mentioned, no Warren. So it's just going to be Najee. I think if they get off to a good start against Dallas, that he should have a pretty decent game. James Conner, Arizona versus San Fran. And the only reason why I bring him up is because that should be a high-scoring game. I think the over-under on that one was like 50.5.
Yeah, it's up there. And he gets the passing too, Jeff. That's a great call, because when you get the receiving game like that, you get the floor. And that's, we talk about, you and I said, that takes the risk out. Like, limit your risk, I should say.
Yep. So that's what we've got for the running backs. Let's get to the Smitty had a tight end question. We're not quite there yet, but I don't want to ignore him.
Nope.
Would you go with Parkinson or would you go with Conklin?
Conklin for me. I don't know about you, Jeff. And I'll pull it up for this while you kind of mull what you might think. For me, it's definitely Conklin. He is. All right, let's see. You know what, though? This surprises me. Conklin's tight end 19 and Colby's tight end 20. But I think Conklin's higher in the pecking order for receiving versus Parkinson, with Whittington and Tutu Atwell, and Kyron gets back up. Kyron gets the dump off. So for me, it's Conklin, just because I think he's amongst, last year he was amongst the best in the league in red zone targets. So you could get a 3 for 50 and a touchdown, or 4 for 50 and a touchdown, which is tight end 1 every week.
Yeah, and Conklin came alive the other week. It seemed like Rodgers was going to him quite a bit. I do like Conklin there, especially versus Minnesota. Minnesota has a very good offense as well, obviously, with what they've got. Aaron Jones, J.J. Addison. But yeah, so I've got it about the same spot there too. I've got Conklin just barely over Parkinson. I like Parkinson a lot. I'm actually contemplating starting him just because of the wide receiver situation. And you mentioned who they got, Tutu Atwell and Whittingham. Obviously everything is like we just mentioned this. Everything is going to go through Kyron Williams anyway, but Colby could be the guy against Green Bay that gets into that, middle part of the field there. I think you might as well flip a coin. I hate to say it that way. Otherwise, I got Conklin just a little bit better.
Yeah, well, and I didn't realize the ranking or the year to date they're 19 and 20. That surprised me that close.
Yeah. All right. And then the Smitty said, I picked up, I'm going to guess Mostert. Picked up Mostert.
He is playing this. He's supposed to make his debut. So if you got him and you need him, again, bye weeks. If you have Barkley on your team and Dobbins like I do, you need someone in there. And I was fortunate enough to grab, like I said, told our audience, Tyrone Tracy, especially PPR. In a standard league, maybe it's more of a sermon, get the goal line carries. But, Goodson, the other running back on that team, he's going to get the passing down work probably. So if you need someone else, there's another one for our audience.
Yeah. All right. Here's a fun one for this week is the wide receivers.
All right. Yeah.
Take it away, Shawn. I want to hear what you've got for your wide receiver crew first, and then I'll dive into mine because I've got quite a few I like.
Yeah. In my column, I'll read you verbatim. We put Waddle here last week, and we'll continue until Tua returns. And you already said this, the Miami offense is a mess. Waddle's suffering. He's 4 for 36 last week and 4 for 26 the game prior. He has 17 catches, no touchdowns on the year as wide receiver 48. So he's at the top of my list. And where you paid for him, I know he's correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, then he probably would go in the third round of drafts, of season-long drafts.
Yeah.
So that's my sit for the week. My starts, a couple guys I liked. Going back to that Cleveland game, Amari Cooper last week, we talked about, had an 82-yard touchdown wiped off the board. He would have been way up there. Again, that matchup can't get any better for him. I like him this week. I always like to throw George Pickens in there. Obviously, I like my Steelers, but Pickens just is a volume play. I think he's just someone. I don't like him as a wide receiver 1 or 2, but he's a good wide receiver 3 on your team in leagues that start 3 wide receivers, or he'd be a good flex option because of the upside. I like him a lot. And then I will do one that I've been doing some research, some listening. This is my sleeper for everybody. If Juju Smith-Schuster's out there, I would pick him up from what I'm reading because, and here's why people might think I'm nuts, but he fits the possession receiver role that Rashee Rice was, the underneath stuff. So I think he might be someone. And then to go along with that, maybe if he's not available, a stash, or might need him in a deeper league is Justin Watson. That possession role that Rashee Rice filled, those two guys fit it more. Worthy doesn't fit that. He's going to be used. He's the over-the-top guy. They got to have someone there. Maybe it could be Hunt, but that over the middle, the number one beneficiary, obviously, and we'll get to this, is Kelsey, with Rice down. But the wide receiver role, I mean, they're not going out unless they do it tonight. I don't see anybody getting signed. So I think Juju could be a little bit of especially in PPR. Maybe he's a 6 for 66, 6 for 60, gets you in the end zone. So that's just like and if you have bye issues, you lost Neighbors. Like for me, I lost Neighbors. In this week I have Quentin Johnson. He's so I'm using Juju in a flex spot. So
yeah, we got a question. How do you feel about Noah Gray?
Yeah, and they just signed another tight end, Fortney. I read off a practice squad, but yeah, I mean Gray's a sneaky ad too. Yep, they might go heavy personnel and use the 2 tight ends. And he would be in there with Kelsey.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not bad.
Jody Fortson.
Yeah, Fortson. That could
so they've got 4 tight ends right now behind Jared Wiley there as the number 3 guy.
Yeah, I read they might go the heavy package or the Godzilla package or something they call it in Kansas City.
Yep. All right, we've got another question. Hold tight here real quick because it's a wide receiver question. I'm going to go through mine here real quick as far as wide receivers. Buddy. And some of these are kind of no-brainers. Love Nico Collins for maybe a top play or top wide receiver of the week. Houston versus Buffalo, a high-scoring game again. Buffalo, the Buffalo game, that one was just the D was a little suspect for me, watching, Baltimore do what they did against them.
Yeah.
So that little piece about Buffalo, their defense being suspect. Nico Collins got 12 catches last year. It seemed like he was the only target on that team. So he tore it up last year. He's going to be another hot play again this week. I mentioned as a sleeper for my quarterback picks was Joe Burrow. I think Jamar Chase versus Baltimore, another high scoring game. The Baltimore
pay up for him. Pay up for him in DFS. Absolutely. Yep.
The Baltimore D is 5th worst against the pass. So, Jamar is probably going to tear one off the top for a big one. Debo is a no-brainer against Arizona. They gave up the 4th most points. Should be, again, another high-scoring game. Now, here's some guys, and you might have kind of flirted around with a couple of these. Wan'Dale Robinson. So, right, Malik is out. They're going up against Seattle. They're going to have to throw to somebody. Who else are they going to throw to?
Especially in PPR. Yeah. He's huge.
Oh, absolutely. He was catching everything in that short range.
He's a PPR monster.
Yep, he was great last week, and Daniel Jones is just dumb enough to throw it to him wherever he's at. So I hate to put it that bluntly, but he's going to get a lot of throws, and if Jones throws 4 picks, then he throws 4 picks, but he's going to try to get it to Robinson as much as he can. I also like DJ Moore this week. I think he's going to have a coming out party against Carolina. They've given up the most points in the NFL. I think if Caleb Williams is going to have kind of like the Deshaun Watson, right? If he can't do it this week, when is he going to do it? I think Caleb Williams is really going to have to start looking at DJ Moore a little bit more. And then I also like Brian Thompson in Jacksonville versus Indy. They gave up the 8th most passing yards. So those are some obvious ones and maybe not some obvious ones.
Yeah. I left one off, Jeff. I'm sorry that I wrote this and I can't believe I forgot it because it's the article that did it for me is in the Texans. That Stroud is going to pump Diggs with targets because that rift is there and they can say what they want. There's a rift between him and Allen and Diggs and the Bills. He's going to get pumped. Stroud's going to pump him targets.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I think he's going to find another gear just to get open. He's pulling out the bag of tricks to get everything that he can. And if he doesn't get the passes thrown to him, he's going to be barking on the sideline. So
especially in that game. Yeah.
A couple of sits that I've got for you. Jacoby Myers in Las Vegas against Denver. They're giving up the 3rd least passing yards allowed. Denver is, and their quarterback situation is a joke as well. Jacoby Myers is not a true number 1 wide receiver. I don't think he's going to do anything for you. Brandon Ayuk, he might as well be the number 3 wide receiver in San Fran right now behind Juwan Jennings and Debo. I would put him on the bench until he can prove that he can actually play again this year or wants to play. I don't know what the problem is with him at practice. But then another one, this might be a controversial one, Jordan Addison versus the Jets. The Jets give up the 2nd least passing yards allowed. I think JJ will have some success because he's JJ. But I don't think Jordan Addison is going to come out and have 2 touchdowns like he did last week against Green Bay. So don't expect those kinds of numbers again. My sleepers, talked about a couple of them, Michael Pittman, and I actually put in parentheses, if Flacco.
Yeah, so and it looks like it is Flacco too.
Yep. So if it's going to be Flacco, give it to Michael Pittman. Give him the nod versus Jacksonville. They have given up the 3rd most points in the NFL. Tutu Atwell. I love Tutu Atwell this week against Green Bay. 10th worst against the pass. Somebody's going to be getting the ball there. I think it's going to be Tutu this week. Those are going to be my main sleepers. We talked about Garrett Wilson. I think he's going to have a day. Don't stash him just yet versus Minnesota. And then CeeDee Lamb, obviously, I don't even think he's a sleeper, but versus Pittsburgh, some people might think he's a sleeper just because it's Pittsburgh. But Dallas is going to need to pass in this game because, to your point, I think Justin Fields comes out. I think he's going to have a pretty decent week.
That could be a nice game for people to hit up in fantasy right there.
Yeah.
I got one more fade. Go ahead. We'll get to that question. Is along with Waddle is Hill. You're not sitting him. I know you can't. But that Miami receiving game is a fade. So when I write my article in the fades, I think of that more as not a sit, but a temper expectations.
Yeah. Nope, that's a good point. Who should I start? Wicks, Waddell, or JSN?
For me, it's Wicks, and then second would be JSN.
Yeah, we kind of talked about Wicks before.
Especially now with Dobbs and both no Dobbs and no Watson, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I go Wicks and then Wandale and then JSN. I just think.
Oh, you said Wandale. I thought you said Jalen Waddle. I'm sorry.
Oh no. Nope. Sorry.
I'm with you. I'm in the same order as you then. Yes.
Yeah, I'd go Wicks, Wandale Robinson, because he's going to be getting the majority of the targets there without Malik, and then JSN number 3. They're still going heavy to DK.
Yep. No, I exactly agree how you said it.
All right, perfect. See, look at that. We're just both on the same page all the time. It's awesome. Also, do you think I should start Cam Akers over Ramondre? I think
we know Mixon's out.
Mixon is out, and
Pierce is so, and I don't. So the split's going to be more Akers. Ramondre, we know he's not starting, but does that mean 1 series or does that mean 1.5?
Yeah.
If we go off the talent, it's Ramondre. That's to me, that's a toss-up. I hate to say that for our writers, but
yeah,
you might get some more information too on tomorrow. On some breaking news, how the split will be with. We know Akers is probably the lead back, but we might get some more information tomorrow morning around the pregame stuff as to how is it a series, is it a quarter, is it a half. So I still think he's going to get plenty of carries, Ramondre. So
yeah, and with the Dameon Pierce Akers thing, I think Akers. I don't think that Dameon Pierce is going to be a real threat.
No,
he's coming off that hamstring injury. If they play him, it's going to be very sparingly.
He's going to just a series here and there.
Yeah. So Akers, I like over Ramondre just because if Miami is smart, they're going to attack the run anyway. Force New England to beat you with Jacoby Brissett, which they're probably not going to be able to do. So even if Ramondre was a starter, I think I'd still go Akers here because that game is going to be a lot of points. And look at the over-under in that one. I think, between Buffalo and Houston, 50 points. Between Miami and New England, you're probably looking at closer to 38.
I can tell you right now, buddy. Well, how about this, Jeff? It's down to 35.5 in that Miami game.
Yeah, so there's
and
not
then
going to
the
be
Bills are 47, 48. So that's a great way to tie break is to look at the implied total.
Yeah, Akers has more opportunity for bigger points there.
And you're talking 12 more points.
All right, we got one from Dan. Hi guys, in half PPR, would you start Evan Ingram or Tucker Kraft at tight end? I was thinking of starting Ingram if he hadn't had an injury designation after Friday, but he's still listed as questionable. I'll take your word on that one. And it's funny because I almost put this in my tight ends, no matter which one that you're going to start with, either Brenton Strange or Evan Ingram. Maybe you want to stay away from them because they might be playing 50-50 at this point, depending on the designation for Ingram. But I like Tucker Kraft this week.
What I liked, Tucker Kraft could be good. So here's how I'll answer for them. Look at this is another tiebreaker I'll use, and you might do this too. Look at your opponent. Nowadays they tell you what the projections are. If you're the favorite, if you're projected to win, you could go the safer play in Kraft. If you're projected to be the underdog and Ingram starts, I think you would agree that Ingram gives you the higher upside. So if you're the underdog and Ingram is active, you could start Ingram. That's how I would do it.
Well, and here's an update on this one too. As of about a half an hour ago, Ingram with a hamstring who was listed as questionable for Sunday's game against the Colts, is not expected to play.
Okay, well, and so now
for sure answer.
There's your answer.
All right.
Hamstrings, they linger.
They can linger a whole damn year.
I mean, I remember when I was growing up, Andre Reed had a bad hamstring injury. I think he missed 10 weeks.
Ouch. All right, speaking of tight ends, let's move over to tight ends. I don't know who's to start this one, me or you?
Go ahead, buddy.
All right, tight ends. I'm going to die on this hill. I know he hasn't been outstanding yet, but Brock Bowers is one of my first starts. Obviously, they've got the wide receiver issues in Las Vegas. They're playing against Denver. It seems like to me, and when you look at this matchup, it seems like it might be a mid kind of matchup. Oh, he's going to put up maybe 5 or 6 or 7 points like he has been. I think Denver is going to take away any deep pass, any kind of big touchdown plays from Vegas. And I think in doing so, they're going to leave it open underneath for Minshew or Aiden O'Connell or whoever's in there. Bowers hasn't gotten into the end zone yet. I think I said it last week. I thought he was going to. I'm going to double down on that. I think he's gonna have to get there eventually. We just talked about him, Tucker Kraft against the Rams. I don't think Green Bay is going to have to go deep necessarily, and they're already a wide receiver short with Daubs, so that opens up a lot more plays for Tucker Kraft to come in. And he looked healthy against Minnesota last week, so I see nothing bad about him. And then I've got, sticking with the NFC North, I've got Cole Kmet versus Carolina. Carolina is going to make the Bears score points. They're going to have to with Dalton at the quarterback situation now. And Caleb's thrown over 50 times. So to keep the Bears within winning. So I think it's just the law of averages. Cole Kmet is going to have another big game.
Yep. And I actually have for some reason this week, I actually have a lot of tight ends that I like. And I touched on a couple, right? Bowers, you and I are Bowers, and he's due because he is, just to back up how good your point is there, he is second in tight end targets in the league behind only Dallas Goedert. So he's due. I thought we already talked about this. Travis Kelce, to me, is the number one beneficiary because he works the middle of the Rashee Rice absence. I liked, there's a couple other ones here. I like Jake Ferguson because Cooks is now, believe he went on IR already. So Pittsburgh's decent against the tight end. Obviously, their defense is just good all around. But, I mean, every target will not go to Lamb. So Ferguson's he's a red zone threat. Dak looks the tight end, so I liked Ferguson a lot. And my last one was Kincaid because no Shakur this week.
Yeah.
I mean, they finally started to use Coleman. The Buffalo pecking order for targets and calling plays there is mind-boggling. I don't know what they're doing with their offense there. And Allen did not look like Josh Allen, but to me, Kincaid he could be the number one option. Obviously, those wideouts, but I mean, you've got Kincaid and you've got Coleman, and after that, it's wide open. I mean, is it Valdez Scantling? Is it Hollins? So I liked him, and then I got one fade for me for the tight ends, and before we came on, now he's on the report with a rib injury, and I thought he was going to come back. He might still play as McBride from the Cardinals. Yeah. Now that he just got added to the report right before you and I came on with a rib injury. So I'm just worried about him. And the second one, don't hang up on me and cut me off. I don't know which Baltimore tight end you can use because to me it's I'm mystified with Andrews. I don't know what's going on. Is he not healthy? I don't understand. I mean, for where he was drafted, his tight end. I don't get it. He's tight end 38, and that's insane to me with 9 targets on the year and 6 catches. I don't know what's going on there. They're obviously very run heavy. I know that answers it right there. Their passing volume last week, I read this too because I did a write up and I kept with an article in a betting article, and that was their lowest, I believe, ever passing volume for a Ravens quarterback that finished the game. Obviously injury, but that was their lowest pass. But, sure. But I mean, whatever. I mean, they boat raced them, last week. But I mean, that's the tight end has to be a fade there because it's hard to support the passing game, and that's fine because when you're running it like that, as adage says, you don't have to risk throwing the ball. It's just a lower volume right now until someone stops the running game.
Yeah, and to go off of that, Andrews is one of my 3 sits for this week. As if you had to tell people, I don't know, here's a couple of key little nuggets. And I wish Baltimore would have come out and said if this was going to be the game plan in the beginning of the year that, Mark Andrews is going to take on this role. He was actually rated the first best blocking tight end last weekend.
And that makes sense.
Weekend before. So 2 weekends in a row, he's the best blocking tight end in football. He had that big drop last week. He was wide open. He could have just taken it and run. I don't think that they necessarily don't like him anymore. I just think it's you've got Likely. You're a blocking back now or a blocking tight end. I think he's honestly tight end number 2 in Baltimore. Yeah. So,
Likely is Likely. I mean, like I said, he has 9 targets, which is mind-boggling. And then Likely, to your point, Jeff, he's tight end 7. So I guess to clarify, it would be more of a fade Andrews, like you said, or sit, and based on that, you would start Likely as tight end 7, and maybe he's the wide receiver 1 right now. Flowers is obviously the perimeter. He's the threat, but those are probably your 2 best options in the passing game.
Yeah, 18 targets for Likely this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously Lamar is not he's not a guy that's going to throw for 325 yards every week.
Yeah. And right now they're not going to change until someone stops the running game, and nor should they.
If you can stop, and here's the thing to think about also, I'll give you a little heads up, and maybe I shouldn't because I don't want people to beat me on this. Obviously, you've got Derrick Henry there. You've got Justice Hill. He's scooped up too. He had a phenomenal performance last week as RB2. They still got to get Keaton Mitchell back.
Yep.
And from my rumors is he's trending his way back to the field at this point. So
yeah, I have him stashed in a couple leagues with an IR spot.
Yeah, take that with a grain of salt, only because the guy did come back. He tore his ACL in December, I think, November or December of last year. It takes about a year to really come back from that. Don't expect Keaton Mitchell from last year October, where he's burning people and juking people out of their shorts. But once they get that going, if they got 3 backs back there, they might not need to pass ever.
You could keep him on that IR spot, and he's a stretch run guy.
Yeah,
I wish the last 4 games.
I wish we had an IR spot. That's where I would have him right now.
I know. I wish we did too.
Fantasy Turf Wars League.
Yep.
But yeah, other sits for me: Hunter Henry and New England against Miami. Teams have taken away short passing and the running game from New England, and if Miami is smart, they're going to do the same thing, make the quarterback beat you. So I think Henry is a player that you could probably, if you've got another option out there, do away with him. And then Dalton Schultz from Houston. Even though this is going to be a high-scoring game, they're going up against Buffalo. Schultz is being kind of an afterthought offense with Collins, Diggs, Dell, and we talked about that earlier. Collins and Diggs are going to get a ton of targets this week.
Yep.
So you can sit Dalton Schultz. He hasn't been anything phenomenal. Sleepers. We talked about Colby Parkinson. I had him listed under as one of my keepers.
That's a great one too.
I also had
Parkinson.
Tyler Conklin as one of my sleepers.
Yeah.
And then
we talked about him in the first part of the show too. Yep.
Yeah. My third sleeper is Mike Gesicki against Baltimore. Look for him to have a bounce back week. He had a really great week 2 weeks ago. Not so good last week. Disappointing showing against Carolina. But I think Gesicki, again, they're going to have to pass the ball a lot. Cincinnati is. So I see him really, unfortunately, kind of taking it to the Ravens a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's what I've got for tight ends. How about we talk about some defenses real quick? I'll get into it. Let's go Green Bay versus the Rams for obvious reasons. If Green Bay can contain Kyren Williams, get off to a big enough lead. Who knows how viable that's going to be, though, with Doubs being out now. You lose one of your wide receiver weapons. But if they can get out to a big enough lead, they can neutralize Kyren Williams, and the defense should be able to do well. I think it's going to be the normal Rams are barely staying in, passing the ball a lot, or they're coming to play back from behind, and I think Green Bay takes advantage of that. Denver against Las Vegas, kind of talked about this. The run game is bad. Devontae is still out. Las Vegas looks like a team that's up against the ropes at this point. And then Seattle against the Giants, again, without Neighbors. Mike McDonald being their coach, they're very defensive-minded. I think they just take it to the Giants. I think they get after Daniel Jones, which is the forte of a Mike McDaniel's defense, and those are going to be the three, I don't know. Those are my big 3 for defenses.
I had Seattle with you. I like the Bears at home against Carolina, and I think that's a good spot for them. I actually picked up in a few fantasy leagues, and then I'll go. We talked about implied total. I'll go right to that Dolphins-Pats game with a total to drop from 45 to 35, which is that's crazy to see a 10-point drop. So that's more so to do with injuries and stuff. But with an implied game total of 35, either the Dolphins or the Pats, obviously you can't go wrong there because I don't think either one of those quarterbacks is going to burn it up.
Yeah, and I actually had the Dolphins as one of my sleeper defenses against New England just because of what we kind of talked about before. The Dolphins' defense has not been great by any means. However, New England starting Antonio Gibson this week instead of Ramondre Stevenson and who's going to play, and then they've got the locker room drama. Looks like a team that might be kind of falling apart a little bit, as well as, and I actually had New England versus Miami as another sleeper because even though Odell Beckham Jr. is coming back apparently for Miami this week, you still, I don't see that meaning a whole lot with Tyler Huntley back there.
I'm with you.
And then I actually had for a sleeper team. How about this one? I like New Orleans against KC.
Yeah.
Because I think
even KC's defense isn't bad either.
Yeah. And if New Orleans can just stop the running game, again, Mahomes has been subpar. Who's he throwing to? Kelsey? It's only a matter of time before they lock him up and, take away the one deep threat that they got. I don't know. KC hasn't put up a lot of points. I think they maybe put up 17 max again.
And I wrote up in that one article that I did and I wrote the individual DFS game. I put down, I don't think any of us is surprised that the Chiefs are 4-0, but we're surprised at how they look in getting there.
Yeah. Yep.
Because they don't look great with the eye test.
Right. You can sit these defenses. I had two. Sit Cleveland versus Washington. They're not the Cleveland of old. And then sticking with the NFC North, go ahead and sit Baltimore versus Cincinnati. The Bengals, I'm not saying that the Bengals are better than the Bills on offense and, all this other stuff, but I think Cincy, like I said before, they always seem to find a way to score. They seem to make games close. Doesn't matter if they're 1-3. I would, if you've got a better option than Baltimore, I'd go with them.
Yep, absolutely. I'm with you on mine was the Browns and the Commanders. I think that total to me is at 42.5 or 43. I think that's a potential to go in the 50s. And I think it's only that low because of Watson, the way he's looked. But if he somehow finds his stride, that should soar over that total.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully you can. I'm not going to get into kickers because I would have went with Koo.
Yeah, I had Koo. I picked him up last second. He missed that first two kicks, and then he ended up with 17 points. I needed a kicker. And then, he got 17 fantasy points, and he could have had over 20 because he missed back-to-back. Normally when a guy misses a kick, then there was a flag, he goes back and kicks it. He missed it again.
I couldn't believe that.
It never happens.
Nope. I was like, well, because I was playing against him in our dynasty league, and he missed the first kick, and then they called it. And I'm like, oh, of course there was a penalty there. Now he's going to come back, just to your point. Yeah, now he's going to come back and get it. And then when they went into overtime, I'm like, that figures. Might as well chalk up a 20 spot for Koo.
Yeah, my brother texted me. He goes, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Because the guy always makes the second kick.
Brother. Yeah, so that's it for us. A little bit less people. I guess we know how this is going to turn out if we do it on a Saturday afternoon instead of Friday afternoon. People are probably at work on their desks or something like that and watching fantasy football to get all their stuff taken care of. But, things happen. So,
Yeah, we had a pivot today, but it's okay. It was pretty neat to do a Saturday. For me, I'm not rushing around as much getting home so it's actually, for me, it was a less stressful. So, but hopefully we get, I'd like to thank you for having me on and our callers, people for writing in and, pumping the show up.
Yeah, no problem. And if something happens down here weather-wise on Thursday and we can't get out of here, then I'll let you know. But otherwise, if you're good for next week Friday, and we can talk about week 6 and all that fun stuff. And
sounds good.
Otherwise,
enjoy the rest of your trip and happy anniversary too.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay,
thanks everyone for tuning in, and check us out next time. And I'm sure you heard it all before. Go back to the beginning of the show here. We're coming up on about 1 hour. So go back to the beginning of the show. That'll tell you where you can find Shawn, everything that he's up to, Apex, YardBarker, all that fun stuff. Our little live show that we do as well. Go ahead, follow, click, get on board with all of us. Some of the guys that mentioned in questions in here, it was literally within a half an hour, 45 minutes of new information coming out. Mm-hmm. So definitely stay tuned. I usually post that kind of stuff on my media as well. So yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right. I'll see you soon. You take care. All right. Stay safe there too. All right.
I can see my wife picking up shells out there from the balconies. So
there we go.
I'm going to get back outside, and you can't really tell, but I got a little bit of sun right now.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day and weekend, my man.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Shawn. We'll talk to you later.